Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a time when there's a whole lot of people that are claiming to represent us. Would do well for them to go back and listen to the words of that national anthem and remember what it took to fight for our freedoms and to earn it. We feel entitled to our freedom now. At least a lot of us in the United States. We don't feel like we have to do anything. It's just ours. We inherited it. It was given to us. Somebody else went and fought for it. Somebody else paid the price for it. And so we should just get it. We don't need to worry about who's running. We don't need to dig in and find out about it. We don't need to pay attention to how they vote. We live in Idaho. We'll be just fine. Unfortunately, that sense of apathy has grown deep, and now we're reaping the rewards of it. As we see what happened over here in the legislature just in the last few days, you know, I thought about all the things I wanted to say. Sometimes somebody just does such a good job of it, it's better off to read what they had to say than to try to reinvent it. Some of you may have seen this email that came across from Dustin Hurst from Idaho Freedom Foundation regarding what happened the last couple of days. And I'm just going to read it because he did such a great job of explaining exactly what happened. Idaho lawmakers failed at their most sacred task, protecting the rights of Gem State citizens. On Wednesday, lawmakers finished their elongated 2021 session. Let's look at their accomplishments. Did they do anything to protect the medical privacy of Idahoans whose employers are demanding personal information? No. Did they do anything to protect did the lawmakers pass legislation to stop school districts from masking students? No. Did lawmakers do anything to protect those who might be harmed by the experimental vaccines? No. Did Idaho lawmakers protect the liberty of vaccine-skeptical Idahoans who don't want to be treated as second-class citizens in society, which is happening, by the way? Nope. What then did lawmakers accomplish during the 3-day special session that concluded Wednesday afternoon and cost taxpayers more than $100,000? Well, they sent a strongly worded letter to Congress. I'm so sick and tired of strongly worded letters that do nothing but just puff them up and make them feel like they did something, make them look good, little good headlines for KNDT over there, but they didn't do anything. It's just a little letter. They sent a strongly worded letter to Congress and extracted a pound of flesh from a good conservative lawmaker during a bogus ethics hearing. This is a complete and total abdication of duty, and the blame rests largely with House Speaker Scott Bedke, Senate Pro Tem Chuck Winder, and Governor Chicken Little. I ad-libbed a little there. For months, desperate Idahoans begged these three politicians to act to save jobs, lives, and livelihood, and they didn't. Instead of listening to the will of the people, Little, Bedke, and Winder did the bidding of special interests and that want to continue the medical tyranny unfolding in Idaho. This trio thwarted commendable efforts by principled conservatives to put an end to vaccination by intimidation and threat. Those conservatives deserve thanks of Idahoans across the state. Bedke, Winder, and Little do not. So where's this headed? More Idahoans will be coerced into getting an experimental vaccine with potential adverse effects or face financial ruin, all due to failed leadership from those that they helped elect. One thing is certain. Many of those who torpedoed efforts to defend freedom will next year campaign on defending Idaho from federal government overreach. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Lawmakers should be ashamed. Idahoans should be furious that lawmakers engaged in this pathetic charade. Idaho deserves better. And he said everything that I wanted to say, probably a little bit better. Amen? Amen? Our guest speaker tonight has a history rooted in a little bit of controversy. And I love it. We need a little controversy here in Idaho, don't we? You know where your controversy comes from? Actually getting in the cotton picking arena and doing something. There will always be critics come out when somebody jumps in the arena to talk about how they would have done it different, how they would have done it better, how they wouldn't have done it like that. Well, where the heck are you? Where the heck is Brad Little? He hasn't been there defending us. Where's Scott Bedke? He hasn't done anything for us. Where are the leaders? I would much rather somebody surrounded by a little bit of controversy that gets off of his duff and does something than somebody who sits out there and talks and sends letters. Right. Amen? Right. Our guest speaker tonight is famous or infamous, depending on your viewpoint. He's been called a domestic terrorist, a white nationalist, white supremacist, leader of a militia known as People's Rights. Very threatening sounding group, don't you think? And he's been called a Captain Moroni, his most fitting title. What he really is a man of God, a beloved son, brother, husband, father, and friend, a man who has and will stand up for the God-given, constitutionally protected rights of every man, woman, and child on the earth, who daily teaches and sets the example for us all, whose only true enemy is tyranny and evil. May we all leave here tonight understanding how we may become, like him, a warrior for freedom and liberty, and stand up for ourselves and others in defending our God-given, constitutionally protected rights. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my sincere honor to introduce to you Mr. Cliven Bundy.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You know what? It's already going to be a good meeting because you're here. You're here. I'm going to start this out. I want you to listen to this video. It's just an intro video of when I first announced. Idaho, to me, represents the best of what America was. Idaho was a conservative state with traditional family values, full of people of faith who carried guns, loved the Constitution, helped each other, and built businesses by the sweat of their own brow. Idaho is sliding down the path and ceasing to be the Idaho that we love. I don't want that to happen. And so I'm announcing now that I will be running as governor for the great state of Idaho. As governor, I will be implementing a plan and a platform to keep Idaho, Idaho. The Keep Idaho, Idaho plan will improve life, bring prosperity, empower and protect families, and secure the opportunity for happiness to every person living within the beautiful state of Idaho. I know how to win. My record and history demonstrates that I am willing to fight to the very end. Now it's your choice. May God bless the people of Idaho. May we live up to these blessings. May we keep Idaho a bastion of freedom and prosperity for years to come. May we be an example to the world of how to be free, of how to act, how to treat each other. And together, all of us together, may we keep Idaho, Idaho. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. All right. So let's talk here. We're gonna actually hopefully have a conversation. I don't even like to be on the stage. I'd rather be down there with you. But since we're kind of getting productive here, we're gonna have a conversation. But I wanna ask you, what is freedom? Have you ever actually thought about it? About the word? We sing about it. It's in our hearts. We feel it, right? We know what it feels like, but what is it? How do we define it? So just raise your hand if you think you can define freedom. If I got to get off the stage, I will. Because we're going to talk here tonight. We're going to talk. Oh, we got somebody right here. He's raised his hand. Do you know what freedom is? You want to say what it is? Tell me what it is. Be able to live, that's pretty good, right? You have to live. Okay, what else? Don't be shy. I have to admit that I was in this fight for quite a while, and then I thought about the word freedom, and I thought, you know what? I don't know that I could truly define it. This was years ago, but I thought, okay, and I had to really think about what it was. Are you kind of feeling that maybe? Right here. Go ahead and just speak loud.
I never need the microphone in church.
not an individualistic thing. Though we enjoy the fruits of it individually, it is something that is collectively done by the whole, or as we might call it, society, or community, or country, or state. Sometimes it's expressed in war, sometimes it's expressed in protest, but most often, freedom is usually expressed in family. What we do in our communities for one another, whether it's helping your neighbor build a fence, break leaves, things like that, you know? And,
Okay.
It just grows from that.
Okay, that's great. Right here, Shane?
I can do what I want, say what I want, believe what I want, go where I want, act like I want, dress like I want, as long as what I'm doing does not interfere with your right to be safe.
Oh my heck, Shane. You nailed it. And great answers. But right? Did you hear what he said? This is pretty much what he said. And we haven't been talking, but he understands freedom. You want to say something? What's that? The exact opposite of what the president's doing, right? Pretty close. So think about this. Again, we need to define. Go ahead.
Freedom is an essential tool for us to prosper and to merely survive.
I could not agree more. Freedom is a tool for us to prosper, not just survive. And I might have, go ahead. It's our right to be free, right? Yes. Owning property, right. Okay, all that's beautiful. Perfect. Let's just go here, and then I'm actually going to go right into what you just said. So freedom is the ability to do whatever you want as long as you are not infringing on another's rights, right? So let's apply this a little bit, which we've already done here a little bit. So freedom of speech, right? What is freedom of speech? Well, I can say whatever I want, as long as I don't infringe on somebody else's right. What about freedom of religion? I can worship whatever I want. Right? I can be a yellow dog if I want. As long as I'm not using that or to infringe upon somebody else's right, life, liberty, or property. And there's other rights too, right? What about property? Private property. Right? To be free, think about it. Because I want you to ask yourself, are you free? Are you free? Right? So, can you do whatever you want to do with your property as long as you do not infringe upon your neighbor's right? I want to ask you, go ahead. Okay. To be able to decide or choose who your leaders are, to give your consent. I think that's part of it. We know that that is certainly part of our form of government. And the government is there to protect these rights, right? We learned that in the Declaration. The right to be able to speak freely. The right to be able to worship how we want. The right to be able to own and control property, right? What about the freedom of the press? I bring that up because I was arrested at the Capitol building in August of 2020 for standing up for the right of the freedom of the press. Most people don't know that's why I was arrested, but that's why I was arrested. So, but to you, I really want you to ask yourself, are you free? Are you free to be able to say the things you want to without harm coming upon you? Are you free to be able to worship? Are you free to be able to own and control your property? Are you free to be able to publish your videos and all of that? And for the most part, you know, you kind of look, well, yeah. I think property is being attacked pretty heavily, very heavily, right? And in fact, with that being said, Karl Marx said in the Communist Manifesto, said that communism can be summed up into one sentence: the abolition of private property. They're attacking our property for a reason. They don't want you to be free. They want to control it. And so let's remember those things. Now I'm going to tell you a little story because I am here for a specific reason. I'm here to gain your confidence. That's it. I want you to have confidence in me before we leave. so that you will support me in my run for governor. Support me just by word, talking to your friends, sharing messages, support me financially in my campaign, maybe even be a volunteer or at least subscribe so you'll support me, so you have confidence in me. Say, look, this is the person that we need to support. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell you what makes me tick. So I was born in southern Nevada, on the Bundy Ranch in southern Nevada. It's a very desert, arid place. This is my mother and father, Cliven and Carol Bundy, and I love them very much, and they love me and my brothers and sisters very much. They've been very good parents to me. I'm going to tell you, again, this is a little bit of landscape at the Bundy Ranch. You can see there's not any trees, there's hardly any vegetation at all. And it takes about 100 acres to produce enough feed for one cow. Here's a picture of a steer on the hill. That's a pretty common. This is actually in some of the more greener areas, believe it or not. But they'll eat anything. They eat everything. They don't really like the chaparral too much, but these Joshua trees will get pears on them and they'll eat those. They eat the shrub. And then this little grass down here, you see it's all over? If we get a little bit of rain, it'll actually get a bunch of grass and the cows will eat it. And they'll actually get fat on it. But again, it takes about 100 acres to produce enough feed for one cow. Well, there's also something in the desert that we don't have a lot of, and that's water, right? So my family in 1877 came into the Virgin Valley, and they were there. They came in after another group of people came in. They were there for not even a full year, and they left the area and went back up to Salt Lake and reported to Brigham Young that the place was uninhabitable, that there's no way that anybody could live there. Well, so we always tease that Brigham Young looked around and he said, let's find the most stubborn, obstinate, hard-headed people, and we'll send them down there and see how they do. And that was my family. And my family stayed. And they started leveling the grounds in the Virgin Valley, Mesquite, Nevada, Bunkerville, Nevada, that's the Virgin Valley. And they began to divert the water from the Virgin River. And they call it the Virgin River because it's a mile wide, give or take, a mile wide, and it's all sand. Whenever there's a flood, you could have the river over here a mile, and then there'll be a flood, and it's over here. And that's the reality. And so, trying to divert water out of that to get into your irrigation canals and ditches is a constant battle. And they didn't do it with equipment. It's hard now with the equipment that we have now. And imagine trying to do it with a horse and whatever, just by hand. Anyway, so they call it the Virgin River because no one's ever seen its bottom. Okay, I probably shouldn't use that joke. I'm glad at least you laughed. Somebody laughed. So anyway, that's how my family, that's my family. And we've always fought the Virgin River. And then they went up on the mountain, the foothills of the Bunkerville Mountain, and they found these springs. They're just small artesian springs. And they dug in and created waterheads and began to divert those waters into watering troughs. And now, in my dad's lifetime, he's 75 years old, he and his forefathers have diverted that water over a 30 square mile area. And that's how the cows survive. Otherwise, they'd have to walk way too far, and they wouldn't be able to use the land the way that we use it now. But the thing is, there's a benefit to that, because there's more wildlife: quail, chukar, rabbit, coyotes, deer, mountain lion. So the hunting is good, the wildlife is good, the cattle can survive. It's also a great place that people go and camp by those water troughs because there's fresh spring water there. So camping is good, and it's made the entire area where it's useful. Now, my dad will say, well, here's another picture. This is my dad in the background. This is one of our bulls. And you'll notice there's some hair on the end of his horn. Well, that's because he just got done hooking the horse. And they're kind of wild out there. They're more like deer than they are cows. And I'm not exaggerating that. Going and gathering cattle, it means you spend a ton of time on a horse. And so, but my dad will say this is what he loves. This is what my family's done for 5 generations now, since 1877. 146 years, I believe. Don't do the math, but I believe it's right around 146 years. And that's what he loves to do. And he says that he doesn't ask for the government's help. He doesn't want the government's help. He just wants to produce for the American people. And you know what he says? He goes, I provide a commodity for the American people. And that's red meat. That's what I provide. That's my contribution to society. I provide red meat for the American people. And he says, I do it on the desert where no one else wants to, and most people can't. And that's what his father done, that's what his grandfather did, that's what he's done, and that's what the next generation is doing as well. This is a scene that I grew up in. That's not me, that's my little brother. This is constantly what we were always doing, that or on a horseback. This is something that actually is not unfamiliar. She just got off that school bus, and look, the 4 dogs come and say hi to her and one of the calves. That calf actually right there, her mother was hit on the highway, and my dad did a C-section, pulled the calf out and saved its life. The mother died, but the calf was alive, so we had to bottle feed it. Made it really, really friendly. In fact, I don't know if I tell you the story, but my dad thought somehow it was really big of him. Every year, he would go and throw that calf on the ground. Like, the thing has got bigger and bigger, right? And he thought, okay, I'm going to do it. He goes out there one year, and that bull, it was a bull then, just tossed him about 20 feet. And that was the last time he was able to throw that calf on the ground. So when I was about 15, 16 years old, my dad came to me, and he came to me out of love, and he says, Ammon, the ranch isn't big enough for the both of us. And I think he had done it to my other brothers too, and that was the reality. Meaning, the ranch just didn't produce enough income for more than a couple families. Well, my dad had a bunch of kids, and I'm in the middle, and he's basically telling me that I'm not going to be able to probably live on the ranch and raise my family here and all of that, which made me sad. And I ended up leaving and served a mission in Minnesota for 2 years. Then I went to Southern Utah University. I was there in Cedar City for several years. I started a business. And I started the business thinking it was going to put me through college, but I ended up not going to college and just going with my business. And I kept wondering, why am I in Cedar City? It's not the best place for my business. I got in the fleet maintenance business, and there wasn't very many vehicles and fleets and so forth in Cedar City, Utah. But I knew I had to be there for some reason, and I kept feeling that I shouldn't leave, and I felt like business-wise I should go to a bigger metropolitan area because of the type of business that I had. And finally, I found out why I wasn't supposed to go. And that is because my beautiful wife, Lisa, came around, and I married her. I found her. And then, shortly after we got married, just a few months after, we moved to Arizona. And I built my business up in Arizona, and ended up being one of the largest fleet maintenance business in Arizona, as a private fleet maintenance business in Arizona. And I dealt with, I've hired hundreds of people. I've dealt with millions of dollars of budgets. We developed, very complicated processes that put us in head of basically our industry. And so why am I telling you this? I want you to understand that I grew up on a ranch. That is in my blood. That's where I love to be. That's where I'd love to, even still go today. But I had to put my big boy pants on and had to go make a living like everybody else does. And I went and I did fairly well in the business. And I managed that business for 21 years. And like I said, I want you to know that I have more of a background than just being on the ranch. So then also when I was about I don't know, 17 years in business, I had been trying to put multiple processes together. We were using softwares like financial software, then we were using paper for our technicians to write, and we were using a work order process software, and then also a scheduling software. All because I would go and I would track all the maintenance on a commercial or medium duty fleet, and so there was a lot going on. And I, the whole time was looking for a software that would do all of it. Well, guess what? It wasn't out there. It wasn't out there, so I decided, well, since it's not out there, I live in the United States of America, so what can I do? I could build one, right? Just like they say, if you can't find a job, make your own. We live in the United States of America. If you can't find a job, you make your own. That's one of the blessings of living here. Well, I applied the same thing to a software. I couldn't find what I needed, and so I ended up developing. It took us 3.5 years, almost 4 years. I hired a project manager and a developer, and then we tested. We would develop it and go through it and get it where we thought it was okay. Then we tested on our customers, or we tested on our technicians. We tested on our office staff and our vendors, and all of them knew and had good relationships with them. So they would put up with me, while I'm testing this and working it out, until we got it working really, really well. And then we ended up selling. It worked so well and started to really propel my shop. So we began to sell it to other shops across the country. And now it's one of the leading fleet maintenance shop management softwares in North America. And so I have a background in technology. Who would have ever thought, right? Well, about this time, life was pretty good for me. It was about as good as I could ever see life being. I mean, I had a beautiful family, wonderful, loyal, beautiful wife. And I don't mean just beautiful in her looks, although she is beautiful, but in the way she treated me and the way she raised our children, and my young children as well. I had a business that was successful, and it was the first time in my life that I actually had time and money, right? Usually you either have time and you have no money, or you have money and you have no time, right? Well, this is the first time for just a little point, or a little window in my life that I actually have both time and money. And I was knowing I needed to do other things, and anyway, life was good. And then something happened in 2014. I watched the federal government come after my family. Snipers on the hills. They began to kill the cattle with helicopters. They locked down the ranch. They began to kill the cattle from the air, helicopters. They began to bury the cattle in mass graves. They began to leave the baby calves out in the desert, basically to die. And this is what was going on at the Bundy Ranch in 2014. And I'm at home in Arizona at this time, and I'm watching it and hearing from my family, and they're telling me that there's federal agents that are surrounded the ranch home, and there's snipers on the hills. They're telling me that they're killing the cattle from the air. They're telling me that there's AMRAAMs and helicopters and guards and armed men fully equipped that are roaming all over the valley. And I couldn't quite believe it. I couldn't quite get my eyes or to my understanding of what was really happening. And ultimately, it accelerated enough that I felt that I needed to go to the ranch. And my brothers and other family members did as well. So we headed to the ranch. And when I pulled into the Virgin Valley and dropped down, I could not believe what my eyes were seeing. Could not believe it. It was the best way I could describe it. Was like a scene out of the movie Red Dawn. There was literally an occupation that was going on in our valley. Now, I want to play you a video here I'm going to play a series of videos. I'm going to first play this one, kind of give you a little bit of understanding, and then I'm going to go into some of the abuse that they did. And then I want to show you what the American people did.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is probably one of the most important guests I've ever had. I hope I pronounce his first name right. It's Cliven Bundy. He's the last rancher standing from Clark County, Nevada, in the fight to stop the feds. He's 67 years old and has a wife named Carol who is standing by her man in his fight against tyranny.
This is more than a simple story of a Western rancher standing up against an abuse of power and use of overwhelming force by the federal government.
One of the major news stories making the rounds today comes from the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, where Cliven Bundy is in an intense showdown with federal agents who are now circling his property with snipers in helicopters. Immediate action on the part of the governor should be taken to call off the pending range war.
So what's behind these land grabs? Are they really about protected animals like tortoises and owls?
It was designed to shut down ranches for people like the Bundys in Bunkerville.
And so when I pay my grazing fees, if I owe any grazing fees, I will sure pay it to the right landlord, and that would be Clark County, Nevada.
And the confrontation now getting violent.
I got hit one. Oh my gosh.
If this is where America is, we do need help. We really need help.
We're bringing out the latest from the Bundy Ranch, where the militia has arrived in support of Cliven Bundy in his standoff against the federal government.
And so I ask the question here tonight, is the United States government trespassing on your land?
So these people who hold themselves out to be patriots are not. They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
This is the road I grew up on. This is the road I grew up on. What are you doing with the backhoes? That's all we want to know.
I love you people, but I love this land, and I love freedom and liberty.
So you first slice this sleeve, okay?
This is them beating down my brother for filming them on the side of the road while they killed cattle.
Now, I'm gonna drag you out of the car, okay?
Snipers on the hill. This is an agent coming up behind my Aunt Margaret, slamming her on the ground.
This is a claim right now. We're not killing cattle.
This is a reporter speaking to agent in charge. And he's telling them that they're not killing cattle. They are not killing cattle. This is a federal agent helicopter. Shooting, killing cattle. They were dumping into mass graves.
No, and again, I'm the guy in charge. Okay. I do not lie. On behalf of the United States government, I do not lie.
There are no baby cattle left out there after you guys have been... None?
Not killing. Okay. They're doing every effort that if they separate a calf, they identify it.
What if I have proof of the contrary?
Well, again, to get every single baby calf that's dead?
Oh my goodness.
Is that what you're saying?
You guys are leaving them out there.
No, they're roping. If we gather in an area, the specific area we gather in, anyone that is separated is identified, and they go back and they collect it. Now, if there are baby calves in other areas, that very well could happen. Well, that's what's...
This is just a very little tip of the iceberg of what was going on. Got another video here. Finally, what happened is the American people got tired of it. This got spread all over, these videos, what was happening. They were tasing us, sicking their dogs on us, many other things. The American people got tired of it. And ultimately, this is what happened. Hundreds of people came.
The crowd is now moving forward toward the barrier. The police have been telling everybody they are going to shoot if we don't move back. People are moving forward with their hands in the air, holding flags with both hands in the air. It's a mixture of people on foot, as you can see, people on foot, and cowboys.
Time to talk upstairs with Metro. All right, push these people back up off the gate. Push them back up off the gate. We're going to work to release these cattle. Listen to me. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you, but I need you to back them up. But what we're doing, you get that time. That's right. Now you're trying. I know, I get that. Can we push them back up off the gate right now? You want to stay there, that's great. We'll make sure that your dad's going to need some help if they decide that they're going to pull those hands. But I need, it's only going to be Bundy and his son. That's it.
It's the people or not. You guys need to leave. Okay. You need to leave, right? You are on the battleship. And then it's time.
We're doing it. No, but you need to push these people back so they can do the same. Push them back so they can do the same. We respect the authorities.
Cowboys went up in there and got the cattle that were left. They were pretty sore-footed. There's about 60 head of cattle that we figured they killed. We couldn't take account for them. We were able to find 27 of their calves and had to bottle feed them. These are the cowboys from all over, basically the western United States, that came to help and stand with my family. And they drove the cattle. There was about 400 head. They drove back on the range, and they went back. We went back to ranching. Pretty much. I want to show you something. I want to show you two things real quick. Don't turn the light on yet. I think it's right here. Let's see. I'm going to play this because this is going to, I want to show you something here that's kind of amazing to me. You might not have caught it, and I don't blame you. You see these federal agents, they're backing away They still got their guns. There was a total of 213 armed agents, federal agents, at one report that we had. But, oh, who's that right there? That's a sheriff deputy. And you know what the sheriff deputy did? Along with a couple of them, they're the ones that came down and said to the federal agents, look, the people have spoken here. It's time for you to leave. Now, if you look, this is a picture that a federal agent took, and we gave them an hour to leave the area. And they packed up in an hour, and this is only about a third of the vehicles. There's 107 vehicles that we counted. Look at this. This is, you can see, and it goes on for about a quarter of a mile. They're about a third of the way. And they left all at once. And they never came back to the Bundy Ranch. Never. Why? Because the people spoke. The people said no more. So, what was happening to my family? Go ahead and turn the light on. What was happening to my family back then, and what had been happening to my family for the last couple decades prior to this, is what's happening to all people across the country right now. And we were, for whatever reason, we were able to see and get ahead and experience basically what's happening now. What is that? They want to take your rights and turn it into a privilege and say that they have control over it. My dad had rights to this land. It's deeded with the state of Nevada. It's so strong that the deeds actually say that he has a right and actually has an amount of cattle that he can graze on in that area. It's tied to the waters. The waters are called livestock watering rights. And that's the deeded right that my dad has, that my forefathers established many, many years ago. And they tried to come in and say that wasn't a right. They tried to come in and say it was a privilege. Just like they're trying right now to say that it's not your right to decide what you do with your own body. That it's a privilege that they give you, and they get to make that decision. It's just like they're saying about your property, about your right to travel, about your right to worship. And that's what the exact same thing is going on with my family. And this, in the United States of America, in the history of the world actually, well, I don't know, let's not go that far. Let's say the United States of America. What happened here has never happened before. It never happened before that, and it's never happened since. It was a pure uniting of the American people saying, look, this morally is not okay. And literally driving the agents, giving them an ultimatum, you leave now. That was it. And they packed up in 107 vehicles with multiple people in each vehicle and left the area and never came back. So some might say, well, you know, Hammond's extreme. Yeah, you're damn right I'm extreme. I know what it takes. I know what it's going to take to preserve your right to control your own body. I know what it's going to take to make sure you protect these little ones. I've seen it before. I know exactly what they'll do, the level. If they'll do this for a bunch of cows in the desert, a desert that no one else wants, what do you think they're going to do to you and to me? To the right for you to be able to decide what you're going to do with your own life. What do you think? And that's the reality of it. So anyway, after this, it threw my family into the limelight. You all know. I remember watching my dad lean up against the church building. He left church and he was doing an interview. And he was the interviewer, and the network that he was interviewing had 330 million listeners. And my dad was leaning up on his flip phone, talking to them, doing an interview. And that's what happened to my family. We got thrown into it. We didn't want it. All we wanted to do was ranch. All I wanted to do is make money in my business and take care of my little family. I didn't want any of this. We got thrown into it. And then we decided, well, what do we got to do with it? We've got to warn the rest of the people. We've got to fight. We've got to make sure that this doesn't happen. And so that's what I've been doing almost the last decade. But before that, I moved to, well, in the middle of it, I moved to Idaho. 2000, this is a family picture in 2021, but I moved in Idaho almost 7 years ago, into Emmett. And I love that little town. I love Idaho. I'm so grateful to be here. I could go on and on and on about that. But shortly after I came to Idaho, I found out about this family. And to be honest with you, I tried to not listen. I was like, I don't want to know. And people kept saying, there's this family, you know, the same thing's happening to them that happened to you guys. And my dad would call me up and he's like, you know, what's going on with the Hammond family? I'm really concerned about them. I think that the same thing's happening to them is happening to us. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, you know, I don't want to go fight somebody else's battle. It's hard enough. We've fought enough. You know, I don't want to go fight somebody else's battle. And then one Monday night, long day, I was laying in my bed and my phone was next to my stupid phones, right next to my bed, and it chimed. And I picked it up and it was a message that said, you got to see this. And I clicked on it and it was an article about the Hammond family. And I began to see very clearly that what was happening to them was even in some ways worse than what happened to my family. That they were thrown in prison, they were falsely prosecuted, that they served their time even though it was wrong and an injustice. Then they came home, they thought it was all done with. The prosecutors appealed the sentencing with the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit overturned the sentencing and was putting them back into prison for the remainder of 5 years after they had served their time and come home. All because the federal government was trying to take their land and had actually taken about a third of their ranch, their water rights, even after it was adjudicated and even after the courts of Oregon ruled that the Hammond family owned the water. The federal government fenced it off and says, well, we own the land around it and we're going to keep the Hammonds from using it. What kind of justice is that? That's what was going on. And so finally, I mean, when I was reading it, it just built into me, and I knew I had to act. I had the ability to reach a lot of people. I knew the Hammonds needed my help. They were going to prison for simply doing what they had a right to do. Because they hadn't won the battle yet of whose rights were what. The federal government was claiming that it was a privilege, not a right. So anyhow, I went and visited the Hammonds, and I found out that they were the salt of the earth people. They were as good a people as you could ever meet in this whole world. And what was happening to them was just a miscarriage of justice. And so I began to reach out to every person I could. The legislature, the sheriff, the county commissioners, the state, the U.S. congressman. And all of them, every single one of them said, it's a terrible miscarriage of justice that is happening to the Hammonds, but there's nothing we can do. That's what they said. Sound familiar, right? Sound familiar with our legislature? About any legislature out there. There's nothing we could do. And that just wasn't good enough for me. I saw an injustice. I knew that it had to be made as right as it could. I had to do something. And so I took it upon myself to sally forth in the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge. I thought this will get us attention, right? And we did. We went in there. Now, just so you know, because the media probably told you that we were like a bunch of militants with AK-47s that occupied a federal building, and we're in there hiding behind the windows, peeking over, you know, getting ready to take our shots. That's not the way it was at all. The Malheur National Wildlife Refuge there's no one there during the winter. They were empty buildings. We went in there and we began to, basically, we had one place where people were living. We had another place where we had office, kind of a headquarters. And we had another place, and they were all their buildings, where we were teaching constitutional classes. And we had thousands, well, I wouldn't say thousands, but we had over 1,000 people come in and actually participate in our classes. And one of them was an elementary class from Burns. I think it was either Crane or Burns, that actually brought elementary students in, and we taught them our constitutional class. Now, does that sound like what the media was telling everybody? Not even close, huh? Everybody was free to come and go. But what was happening, though, is we started to have legislatures, commissioners from states around, including Idaho, come there, and they began to kind of go through our course, and we began to educate them of what was really happening. And it started to build where, I mean, we were gaining a lot of momentum. We had a ton of local support, and we could also see the FBI started to build an army at the airport and the school. And so we could see what they were doing, and there was just, can we build enough support that we can win this political battle? We felt, well, we could. That was the game, the risk. Can we build it faster than they could build and try to demonize us? And we were winning this battle. And then we were invited to Grant County, Oregon, by several hundred people organized a meeting over there, including the sheriff. And we drove on over to Grant County. We started to go over the hill, and there's a section there of about 20 miles where there's no internet service, no phone service. And guess what happened there? We got ambushed by the FBI. And they literally began opening fire into our vehicles. They killed Lavoy Finicum in the back, shot him 3 times in the back with his hands in the air, shot my brother in the arm, and then they arrested us and threw us in prison for 2 years. Never once was I able to have any physical contact or even see my children and my wife for 2 years. I spent nearly half that time in solitary confinement, almost an entire year in solitary confinement. I won't go into the details because it was a terrible, terrible, dark time. But the Lord saw fit for us to come out of there. We were facing 106 years of minimum sentences. The federal government spent $100 million trying to prosecute my family. $100 million. And we beat them. Not just once, but we beat them twice. In their own court, while we were locked away in solitary confinement away from our families. Now, if that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. And it was just simply, literally, the Lord going, you are not going to take these people's lives. I'm going to save them for another purpose. And so that's what he did. We beat him in Oregon with a Portland jury. And then we beat him again in Nevada. And we walked out of there without even a misdemeanor and went back to our families, went back to living. And thank you. Now, not only that, we were successful because we brought so much attention to the plight of the Hammond family that President Trump pardoned the Hammonds. And I can't be more than grateful. It came with a heavy cost. It came with a price, right? But something had to be done. We could not allow injustice to linger and become the normal in our country, in our land. But it comes at a cost. I'm telling you, anything like this comes at a heavy cost. But it was worth it. I was able to go home to my family, my brothers, my dad. They arrested all of us. And we were able to go home, and the Hammonds were freed, and some things were made right. Right? To me, the definition of justice is making the wrong right. That's what justice is. That is what justice is. So now, I've been kind of going on here, and I'm getting a little, I got to make sure, because I really want to have time to talk and communicate. But I have a little bit more of a story, or at least I need to give you some more information, because you need to understand what's happening in Idaho. What's happening right here. And that way you're equipped to know what needs to happen, what we need to do, what each of us need to do. Because Idaho is in a battle for its conservative soul. It absolutely is. And a big part of the reason is because of this man right here. Now, I'm not going to just tell you this because, I'm running against him. I'm going to prove to you, at least a little bit. I could be here for hours and hours showing you, because what I did in 2020 was basically fight against what was going on. But did you know, so tell me, I'm going to ask you a question. Where was the first place in 2020 to have somebody arrested for going to church? Anybody know? Right here. We've got an answer. Okay, he forgot. Okay. It was in Idaho. Imagine that. The first place. What is it? Is it the first time someone had been arrested for going to church since the Declaration of Independence? I don't know that. But can you imagine Idaho being the first place, at least we know for many, 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 many decades, probably over a century, the first place someone was arrested for going to church. And it was in Moscow, Idaho. Remember this? Okay? Because he wouldn't wear a mask outside while they had a church service. Imagine, Idaho. So don't think you're safe. Don't be complacent. What was the first place to arrest a woman for taking her children to the park? Meridian, Idaho. What was one of the first places, and I say one of the first because I don't know, but one of the first places that raided a business for not complying to the governor's stay-at-home orders? Ketchum, Idaho. Hardware Brewing Company. And why? Why were officers acting this way? It's not okay for an officer to act that way. An officer takes an oath. He takes an oath to the Constitution. He doesn't take an oath to his supervisor. He doesn't take an oath to the governor. He takes an oath to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Idaho. And what does the Constitution of Idaho say about worshiping? Well, let's go to it. Article 1, Section 4. Guarantee of religious liberties. The exercise and enjoyment of religious faith and worship shall forever be guaranteed, and no person shall be denied any civil or political right, privilege, or capacity on account of his religious opinions. The very last section of the Idaho Constitution says this. It is ordained by the state of Idaho that the perfect toleration of religious sentiment shall be secured, and no inhabitant of the said state shall ever be molested in person or property on account of his or her mode of religious worship. Well, what in the world, if they're taking an oath to the Constitution of Idaho, what in the world are they doing this for?
Just doing their job.
We've got a problem. What about the U.S. Constitution? Bill of Rights. Where do we find the Bill of Rights? First 10 amendments, right? What's the first line of the first Bill of Rights, the First Amendment? Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So how in anybody's mind does an officer of the law, an Idaho officer, arrest a person for having church outside because he doesn't have a mask on? How? In Idaho. How does somebody arrest a woman for having her children at the park? How do we raid a business because they decided not to stay home? Because they were non-essential? How do we do this stuff? And look, we have to wake up. We're not in easy waters. Idaho is in a battle right now for its conservative soul. And it's because of Republicans, or a perverted version of it, but they call themselves Republicans. All right, So I asked the question, why are police acting like this? And this guy right here, he says why. So he's an undercover ISB officer. And he's serving the owners of Hardware Brewer Company basically violation order for them staying open.
Would you say that again, sir? Hand him that letter back.
No.
I would like to hear him identify himself again.
Can you hear it, Corey? He says, I'm just delivering this letter.
In contrast to the state.
Let me turn this.
All here today, so go ahead and read through that, and you guys can make a decision.
Who's this? Who are you?
What was the letter about?
I just asked him.
I didn't read, so I'm passing along to you guys. This was something that I was told to officially arrive and deliver to you guys. Like I said, I'm not here to debate you guys on anything or stuff. I'm just a messenger. I'm dropping this off for you guys today. And other than that, if you got any questions, I'm sure there's contact information on there for you guys to get in touch with people. And then you guys can respond.
And who are you? Who are you? There's another gentleman here. Who are you?
I'm Detective Lake with State Police. I've actually met you several times, both of you.
Because he was undercover.
I know you're good people, and I know you're trying to keep your businesses afloat. So
we're just speaking up for your liberty and everyone's liberty.
Well, you're actually talking to two veterans as well, so we understand. But you know, I guess what I'm asking is treat us fairly. Like Detective Schwecker just said, he's the messenger. He's bringing you something because these are orders that are bound by law that we have to do. Right? We have
a license.
I get that, but my point.
But they're the messengers. What they're saying
is exactly that. We're the messengers. We get constitutional liberties. We've all taken our oaths, right? But we also have a job to do, and it is constitutional and it is bound by law. So that's why we're here.
It's constitutional. I have my constitutional rights.
Exactly.
I'm just doing my job.
Everybody does, right? So, like Detective Schwecker said, there's numbers and other things on there. If you have any questions, after you read the letter. So.
Okay, so very clearly, so then, just so you know, a few days later, they raided their business and began to prosecute the owners. They raided it, shut their business down, took all their computers, and began to prosecute the owners. And he says right at the beginning of why he did this, because of the governor's order. Because of the order, he says. So, this is why he did it. This is what's going on. Governor made an executive order, and then he has these men who have taken an oath, not to the order, to the Constitution, and they're out there doing his bidding, and then they keep saying that they're just obeying orders. See, and I have a love-hate relationship with law enforcement. I don't even like calling law enforcement, with police officers, or whatever you want. And I have a love-hate relationship. This is what I hate. And what I love is when I see an officer helping somebody, protecting somebody, putting their life in the way in defense of somebody else's life. That's what I love. That's what I long to honor. I want to honor them. I want to be so grateful for them. But then when I see this, and I see it so much, I can't honor them. They took an oath to the Constitution for a reason, so that it would be what their decision making. This is what they were loyal to, is the Constitution, not to a superior, not to a statute, and not to an executive order. But this man is the one who issued this order. Now I'm going to go through, and I'm going to try to get through this pretty quick because I really want to have more of a open conversation. I don't want to keep you guys here forever. But there is a reason why this man did this. And it wasn't because of COVID. It was not because of COVID. And I'm going to give you evidence of that. There's much more. Because who remembers when he issued the first executive order? Go ahead. What date was it? Do you remember? March 13th. Yep. Well, guess what else happened on March 13th? President Trump announced that there was going to be $50 billion available to states that were in a state of emergency. Isn't that interesting? Okay, now, so let's see. Maybe we were in a state of emergency somehow, and so therefore it was justified. The problem is, on the governor's own website, March 13th, the first coronavirus case, one unconfirmed coronavirus case on March 13th. And he put us in a state of emergency. And the reason why was not because of Corona. We only had one case. It was because he wanted to qualify for the $50 million that was being released. Now, who remembers when we were put into an extreme state of emergency? Anybody remember the date? No, it was March 25th. Okay? Now, interesting enough, guess what happened on March 25th? Oh, Trump and Congress agreed to a $2 trillion virus rescue bill. But in order to qualify for it, guess what? You have to be in an extreme state of emergency. So what did Governor Little do? He put the state of Idaho in an extreme state of emergency. We had 136 unconfirmed COVID cases in the entire state. And he put us in an extreme state of emergency. We have never in Idaho hit any pandemic numbers, ever. Just so you know. Yet we have been held under executive orders using martial law, 46601 code. We've been held under there still to this day. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So now, this is interesting. One of Governor Little's executive orders explains why he did it. Okay? And he says, whereas, I wish I had the whole thing, but anyway, you didn't have to. He says, whereas, and securing millions of dollars in funds. Whereas on March 13th, I put the state in emergency. It says, whereas President Trump issued and proclaimed on March 13th, declaring that basically, whereas each of those proclamations remain effective today. Let me keep going. That's not. Okay, so, and then he thanks President Trump for several billion dollars. I'm getting to where I want to show you here. He put the state. Now, I'm going to get to the whereas, don't forget that, okay? But look at this is his self-isolation order from the governor. So he's directs all individuals living in the state of Idaho to self-isolate at their place of residence. He's ordering you to stay home, right? And later in this, it says that he directs the sheriffs, Idaho State Police, and the local police to enforce his order. Okay, with arrest or fines. Now imagine, he must think that he has the authority to tell you whether you can come in or out of your home, right? He has to think that. Otherwise, what's this all about? Now, I just showed you how the executive order that he put into place. It shows you right here, right? Idaho, this is in June, it's still active. And it is, it's still in place today. Right? It's still in order. So at any time, he could actually arrest you. I mean, in reality, he really could arrest us all right here. Because it was still under the order. You understand that? We're not, that's the danger. And not to get too far off, but the law, the statutes of Idaho make it very clear that the legislature has the authority to end the order, right? In fact, it says that the governor can only put the state in emergency for 30 days. And then if it's really extreme, he can extend it for another 30 days. And then it says, if he hasn't ended the order, and I'm paraphrasing, then the legislature shall convene on the 90th day. That's what it says. Why? To end the order and take the power back out of the dictator type situation and restore it back to the public, back to the people's representatives. Right now, we're in a dictator-type situation where the governor controls all the branches of government. If you don't believe me, I want to show you something here. Kind of jumping around a little bit. This is the order, 46601. This is the authority that he used. Look at this. During a period of state of extreme emergency, the governor shall have complete authority over all agencies of the state government, including all separate boards and commissions, and the right to exercise, and goes on. Policing power vested in the state. All power. And it's still that way today. We're not a Republican form of government. We're in a dictatorship government right now. And not only that, let's go to the order that I was kind of referencing before, the executive order. And I want to show you, not only that, look at this. This is 2020-07. This is the 7th order he did in the year 2020. It says, to establish a process to evaluate and implement federal coronavirus funding, okay? Whereas I issued a proclamation on March 13th, yeah, we know that, Chicken Little. Whereas I issued a proclamation on March 25th, yeah, we know that. Remember right here, title, chapter 6, title 46, I just referenced that, just so you know I wasn't crossing things up. Whereas Congress passed and President Trump signed 3 legislative packages that provide state funding in response, so now he's telling us why he did it, right? Whereas I anticipate additional congressional action on federal relief packages to the state regarding COVID, so we're going to get a bunch more money, right? Go to the second page. Now therefore, I, Brad Little of the state of Idaho, do hereby order the creation of a COVID Financial Advisory Committee, CFAC, comprising of members appointed by and serving at the pleasure of the governor. What? You see a problem here? So he's going to get billions of dollars from the federal government. He's going to create his own committee that he decides, and that they serve at his pleasure, and then they get to decide where the billions of dollars gets to be spent. Right? Now listen, if I got it, yeah, right here. And they will be spent, coronavirus relief funds and other funds be administered by the office of the governor. How are funds supposed to be spent or determined in Idaho? By the legislature, right? All the funds, the people's representatives. They're supposed to say, this is how much this agency gets, this is how much this gets, this is how much this is. So now he took power to himself as a dictator through 46601, martial law, and then now he's being directly funded, and he gets to decide on his own with his office how he spends it. Any idea how much he's got so far? $18 billion. $18 billion. That's just what we know of. 18 billion. We are in trouble. Idaho is in trouble. We cannot continue. We can't allow this to go on. Can't allow it. The order needs to be ended. Those funds need to be returned back to the federal government. And the power needs to be restored back to our legislatures and back to us. That's what needs to happen. And this dancing around, having legislative sessions, they don't even have any power according to the order. What are we doing? And these are the things that I began to see a long time ago, in 2020. This is why I stood. This is why I did the things I did. This is why they knew I had this information. They knew I was privy to it. They knew I had the ability to tell people. And they targeted me. They arrested me. I spent 65 hours arrested 5 times for being at the Capitol building. The officer said and testified in my trial multiple times, I broke no rules. But Scott Bedke and the governor decided that I was not to be there. So they had me arrested. 65 hours in Ada County Jail. And this is why, and among other things. Now, I've only touched on a teeny bit of stuff that I could show you. I could show you how he suspended parental rights when the state takes a child. That's still in place today. I can show you how, for whatever reason, they suspended all the rules to house children when the state takes them. Rules like how many adults they have to have to children, how many bathrooms they have to have per child. And it looks to me like these are the rules that are put in place that would be very difficult if they were to arrest a whole bunch of, or not arrest, but put into custody a whole bunch of children. Why? Why would they do that? Also, who's heard of hydroxychloroquine? Oh, good. Guess when Governor Little made hydroxychloroquine illegal for distribution in Idaho? Who said that? What'd you say? No, March 18th. March 2020. Well, I thought it was a novel coronavirus. I thought we didn't know anything about it. It wasn't until July and August that it became a national issue about hydroxychloroquine being a good combat or a remedy for COVID. But yet in March 2020, March 18th, 2020, Governor Little bans the use of hydroxychloroquine or some type of ban. What's going on here? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Everything I've said, I've showed you. If you want to go look up the March 18th, go look up March 18th. I didn't show you that. So, but that's the reality. And I could go on and on and on. So, we've got a lot of cleaning up to do. If we want a future in Idaho, we have to correct these things. And we have to make sure that we don't end up like Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado. Every single one of these states were conservative states, ultra-conservative states. I grew up in Nevada. If you would have ever told me it was going to be a liberal state, I would have never believed you. It was the most conservative state in the whole union. And now, it's one of the most liberal places, right? Portland. Business owners can't even call the cops unless they steal more than $900 worth of stuff. Don't call us, the cops say. Imagine the message that sends. Hey, all you guys that want to steal things, just come to Portland, come to Oregon. Oregon has the highest food stamps, people on food stamps in the entire union. If you don't want to work, you just want to eat, just come to Oregon. Every single one of those states were conservative states. And this is what happened. They were conservative states, which means what? They love God, they love their country, they love their neighbor, they love freedom, liberty. They want to give the respect to their neighbors of freedom and liberty. They want to work for what they have. They don't want a handout. That's the way these states were. And then they went from conservative to Republican. Okay? Yeah, they did. Not the same thing. Don't ever think that being Republican is conservative. Right? Don't think that way. And then they went from Republican to a perverted version of Republicanism. Where they don't even, I mean, abortion. What? They don't fight for abortion. Lowering taxes, minimizing government, all the things that the Republican platform sets forth, which is a righteous platform. They don't do. And right now in Idaho, and then they went from a perverted version of Republicanism to liberal, to Democrat then to liberal, really. Democrat and then liberal. To where it's just destroying their state. Well, where are we at right now in Idaho? We're at the perverted version of Republicanism stage. That's where we're at. And who is doing it? You know, him and many others that have been in there. Scott Bedke, Governor Little, Winder. I mean, there's I could go on and on. They've been in there for, I mean, what, he's on what, 35, 36 years or something like that? They're fully funded. This is what's going on. We have to break that. We have to break it up. We have to break it up. We have to restore. We have to go back. Let's put forth the Republican platform. Let's actually fight for our unborn children. Let's actually fight to minimize government. Let's actually fight to get the budget and to get it back into the right hands and to lower that, to lower taxes. Right? And then let's move from there into conservative, to actually be conservative, which is to put God first, put family, put our neighbors, small government, right? Local government, to understand the power of a sheriff, to be able to drive off the federal government if they would just do it, right? That's where we're at. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm giving the people of Idaho a choice. That's all. It's very simple. I'm giving them a choice. What do you want? Do you want to be conservative, or do you want to be some perverted version of republicanism that will lead into Democrat, and that will lead into liberalism, and that will eat and destroy our state? It will. So with that being said, I've said enough. I want to open it up. And again, I'm sorry for being so long-winded, but we do have a few minutes here. I want to talk to you. I want to answer any question that you want for me, or have for me. And I don't care if it's about, I don't care what it's about. The only thing I won't answer is if it's something intimate between my wife and I, right? I think you can understand why. Right here.
So he's laying in the office on a cot because nobody knows him. And he's sitting there and I saved the child. I saved the child. I literally said I want this child. And the state is making this child. And he's now around the clock. Every 3 hours one person's coming in and he's laying on a cot at the health officer right now.
And he's got family that would love to take him and take care of him.
Yep. And because I only have a 2-bedroom apartment and 3 adults, I was denied to take this child.
So do you hear the insanity?
So the office is better than...
Yeah, the office is better.
They let me come for 6 days. He started acting better, doing better in school, doing better with his doctor's appointments. But because I couldn't provide his own room, I was denied this child.
Again, we have a situation where the state is assuming rights. Now, I will say that in 2020, I organized a network of people called the People's Rights. Some of you may, and it was for that very reason. And it is a reason why in each area people's rights need to be strong, because it's a communication tool. And we've resolved, I would love to help you. And so would the local people and people's rights. And we know how to do that. We know that it takes actually finding the perpetrators and putting personal accountability upon those people. Not the agency, not going down and screaming at some empty building or some building they don't care, but actually going to their houses and protesting on the streets, because you don't violate their private property, right? Actually, informing everybody you know and everybody they know of what they're doing. And these are the things we've done. And people don't like me for that. But guess what? You know how many kids we've got home to their parents? You know how many situations we've corrected because we've done this? This is why we've done it. This is why we keep doing it. So I would say you need to contact the local area assistance, people's rights assistance, and you need to start going through the process of putting the personal accountability upon the people that are doing this. Because they just don't care. I mean, a kid for months and months and months sleeps in the office of the CPS office when they got family members that love them? This is the insanity, right? I don't know if I answered your question, but there is help. It's help because we organized it.
Because he is physically disabled and he's been acting out. And right now, because nobody can, he will not be placed anywhere. He is sitting, as of right now, in a cot at CPS office.
Yeah, where's your $450,000 for your kids being separated?
Well,
they were in a bad position. I will agree on that position. They were not in the best position to fight. The parents were going to have kids.
yeah.
Because I have a two-bedroom home, I'm not allowed absence. I can pass background check, drug test, I can pass it all. It's because I have two-bedroom home.
Well, I have a lot of confidence that you shine a lot of light on that. All of a sudden, the right things start to happen. We've seen it. Right here.
We have 4 people running for governor. And the problem I see is that man right there, let's go little, doesn't look worried.
He's not worried.
He doesn't look worried is because he knows that the primary vote is being split, and he's going to walk into the governor's office. So how do we keep that from happening?
Okay, so I'm going to...
The way I see it is, there are three people that have to come to a decision as to who can run against this man and beat him. And I think you're that man. But how do you get those other two to come to that conclusion so that we only have 2 people in the right?
So I find it, and I don't want to offend you, okay, because I appreciate what you're saying, and I get it. But I find it interesting that you think it's our decision. It's really yours. It's the people's decision. Right? If we got to get out there, and we've got to make sure that our message is strong and clear. Do you think Janice is going to fight these people? No, she's been in there for 12 plus years, and every time she's come up against them, she's backed off. She's withered away. She's not done anything to actually fight them. And you show me where she has. And if the other individual is Ed that you're talking about, well, I think Ed's a nice guy. I think most people that talk to him is a nice guy. But he's nowhere equipped. He's nowhere, he doesn't even understand what it's going to take to strip these people from power. He has no idea. Because it's just like when we were in court. We were in some of the most public courts, ever at that time. It's like the trial is going on now, right? And in order to even get the jury the truth, we had to walk on the line every single minute of trial. Walk on the line of contempt of court. My attorney, 15 minutes after I was acquitted on all charges, was tasered and arrested by the FBI. The marshals, actually, U.S. Marshals. Because we had to walk on the line of contempt of court. And whoever takes the office of governor and starts to fight these people is going to have to walk right on the line. Every single day, they're going to be trying to put that person in prison, in jail. That's where they're going to have to, and Janice has no idea what has to be done. And he's so far out there, he has no, I like both of them. I think they're both nice. But nice isn't going to get it done. They have to walk right on the line every single day in order to, you saw what happened to President Trump. That same thing is going to have to happen. Right? So, I don't really have an answer for you, but it is the people's choice. And I don't think going and getting some meeting and trying to talk Janice or Ed out of running because I don't think they're qualified I don't know that it'll do any good. I'm willing to sit at the table. But guess what's at risk for me and for all of you? My child's future. And I know that those two people, as nice as they are, have no idea what it's going to take to strip these people of power. But I've seen it many times. I've fought it many times. And that's the only confidence or only answer I can give you. But it's the people right here and then right here. I had a hand up and then.
So, one of the things when I'm talking to people about, the elections and the different things that are coming up, I think the biggest concern for many of them, and they just kind of feel helpless, is the fiasco in the voting system and nationwide, state. And I understand that Idaho might be a little bit better than some of the other places, but how do we ensure that a proper voting system is in place? And I'm not necessarily worried about the ID. I think we should have ID. I think those are all important to have. But how do we ensure the electronic system of the voting is, and that it's not infiltrated, or how do we restore the hope that our vote actually matters?
Okay, that's a great question. And it's a concern for people all across Idaho. I've been around meeting with groups like this, everywhere, all over. And it is a concern. But I want to tell you, I talked to the Secretary of State and he says everything's okay. So let's just say.
I'm done.
So the only thing, because we have to be people of action, right? If we don't act, then we're acted upon. So we have to act. And so what we're doing is we're mounting a volunteer army, literally. And we're getting them in place to be volunteers for the county, as working the booths. And then also we're going to have booth and poll watchers. And we are also building a software. Remember, I'm a software guy, right? I built a few softwares. I built 3 softwares now. The one I told you about. The other was People's Rights. And the other one we're building a campaign software. And we're going to make it so that people who are volunteers there, either as poll watchers or working at the polls, that if there's anything that goes on, they will be able to immediately report to our campaign headquarters. I mean, it'll be live. It'll be right then. Video, pictures, report. It'll immediately go there. And then on election night, we will have a forensic, an analyst, or what'd you say? Yeah, well, I just have the people to know where they can look and see if there is code being manipulated or if those type of things are happening. Computer forensic. I will also have attorneys on staff. And we'll have a direct line to the Secretary of State. And so our hope is that if there is something like, there's 20 people named Humberto and they all live in the same address, and they're coming and wanting to vote, well, that will be reported immediately, brought to the Secretary of State, and a demand of an investigation right then. Right then. We're also, again, have the ability to look at things in the way that most counties do it, is they do it in Idaho, have a paper ballot, and they put it through the machine to count. And then that count goes on actually a jump drive. And then the jump drive is given to the county recorder, and then she puts it on a computer, and then it's sent to the Secretary of State, the state stuff is. Well, you can see there every time there's a risk. And so, certifying the jump drive, certifying where it goes, all of that is important. And we're putting in place that effort to do that. And I have the experience to do that. I have the tech background, I have the ability, and I have the tools to build the software, which we are building right now. And we're going to do the best we can to keep as much light on the election process as we possibly can. So we hope that if there is voter fraud going on, we can catch it. There's some things that need to be done to even to get to that point. Most of it's about mail-in ballots, where a lot of this fraud goes on, and we have some processes in place to look closely at that as well. So anyway, hopefully that's what we're doing. Hopefully that answers your question. Yes. Oh, you know what? Can I stop you because I promised him first, and then you? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So that was when you just answered my question. Are we taking $18 billion of federal money? They're not going to roll over. They don't want you to win.
No.
So we've got to have somebody in every one of those places. Every one of those places we just talked about, jump drives, handing off to the Secretary of State, all that stuff. They all got to be watched. And we have President Trump as the President of the United States and watch the biggest fiasco in the world take place with this oversight. I say everybody in here needs to volunteer for a position to watch this. Can't go unsaid, it can't be undone. There's nothing not done. It's got to be done. We obviously are the ones standing here supporting this. We all need to step forward and make sure that we are doing these jobs. Right? Unless we want it to happen like it did last November. I personally am still pissed about that one. So everybody knows. But we want to help.
Okay, so votebundy.com is my website, and it's got all kinds of stuff there. When you go to it, it's going to pop up and say, subscribe. You put in your name, your email, and then if you want to volunteer, you click a little button on the bottom, and you volunteer. And that's how we're building this army. We have hundreds and hundreds of people already. I think we got over 500 people as volunteers already, but that's not enough. Right? And as we get closer, we're going to be communicating and organizing and getting people in place. But you have to start. VoteBundy.com, subscribe, put volunteer. And then what happens is you're going to get an email. And if there's something that specifically that's concerning you, or you want to volunteer, you have some skills, you reply to that email, and guess who it comes to? It actually comes to me. And so far, I've been pretty busy doing it, but I've been responding to every single email or text message that comes into me through the system. Or if it's something to do with the campaign, I'll push it on to Wendy, my campaign manager, but we will respond. And that's right now what you can do if you want to get on our team and do what we're doing. And I don't know any of the others that are actually mounting any type of defense against this. I'm sure they're thinking about it, but we're actually, building code, and because I don't think you can bring it up 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't think you can bring it up and try to win that battle. You got to bring it up right now. And so we're creating a system to be able to bring those issues up right at the moment. Literally calling the Secretary of State at 10:30 at night saying, this is going on right now there. And that's what we have to do. So thank you very much. Right here.
So I'll try to make this real quick for the sake of time, but I appreciate the fact that you shared your faith tonight. I'm still disappointed that the church has not excommunicated Harry Reid. For those of you that don't know, this is prophecy. And it comes from one of our sets of scriptures. There's a story about a man who goes into a hostile government to make change.
Yeah. No, thank you. Economic development is important to everybody, whether you know it or not, right? Just be able to, have a business, be able to have employment, be able to trade. Those things are very important to us. And what we're feeling right now with the supply chain and all of this is the effects of full-on socialism. That's what is happening. If you go look to a country that went into socialism, which is the gateway to communism, and you look at what happened, it's exactly what's happening right now. Exactly. Now, I don't know if we can reverse all that's happening across the country, but I do believe we can do it here in Idaho. And I believe we have to do it here in Idaho, whether the rest of the world does it or not. Now, we already have patterns. We already have a formula that's been in front of us for a long time that has proven to be a success formula. Our founders put it into place. And it is very, very freedom specific. Meaning, as you free people up, what is freedom? To be able to do whatever they want to do as long as they don't infringe upon another person's property. When you free them up, all of a sudden they're trading, they're inventing, they're coming up with new ways and better ways to do it because they're free. The government regulation is off of them. And it creates this huge economy. It's all based upon freedom. And it's very simple. And it's something that we've already gone through. In fact, it was so successful in the United States of America that we were about maybe a little over 4% of the world's population in 1905. This is the number. This is the year. We were about a little over 4% of the world's population. We were producing 50% of the world's goods. Imagine that. 50% of the world's, whatever was cars, light bulbs. I think light bulbs were there at that time. Yeah, they were. So on and so forth, right? We were producing it. We were only 4 to 6% of the world's population. Why? Because we had gone through a century and a half of really almost complete freedom. And the government was just protecting the right for people to trade. Because trade is between a willing buyer and a willing seller. Right? That's what free trade is. That's what free trade is. And there's no room for the government to get in the middle of it and try to profit or restrict. The government's job is to make sure that a willing buyer and a willing seller can freely trade with each other. That some criminal doesn't come and try to stop that or extort them or restrict it. They're supposed to go, no, let that willing buyer and willing seller keep working with each other because the economy's going crazy. Because they're able to willing buyer, willing seller freely. But that's not what's going on right now. In every level of our businesses. We've got the government coming in and trying to extract money, restrict, right? Trying to make sure that they are somehow justifying their existence. And that's what hurts economies. So freedom is the answer, my answer. Freedom, get out of the way of a willing buyer and a willing seller. And the economy will go crazy again. Inventions, products, all kinds of things. And I've boiled it down pretty simple, but it is pretty simple. And as a governor, what do? Guess what? I'm over the executive branch. And guess where the abuses are coming from? The agencies of the executive branch. I'm going to strip them. I'm going to strip them clean down to where the only thing they're doing is protecting a willing buyer and willing seller. And guess what? When you strip the agencies of the executive branch, all of a sudden, man, we don't need as many taxes. We don't, did you know that over a third of our budget, and I'll go into this in a virtual town hall sometime, over a third of our budget goes to the health and welfare department. Another over third goes to the education department. right? Well, then we get into, I won't say her name because, well, I won't say her name. She's a legislator. And she was explaining to me the other day that there's a 22 or 23 constitutional agencies in the state. Okay? Meaning 22 to 23 are authorized in the state constitution. But how many agencies do we have? 268. Simple. That's the economic plan. Get out of the way. Get the government out of the way and people will begin to trade. People will begin to invent. So that's my answer. What else? We're getting to where I need to get you guys out of here. So why don't we wrap this up? I'm going to show you another video if I can get to it without, my computer's kind of acting weird here. And then Shane wants to say a few things here just really quick, and then I'll get you guys out of here. Thank you. Want to hit the lights? Oh, hang on. I'll wake this thing up again. You can turn the lights on. I don't know how long it takes. So Shane, why don't I turn the time over to you? And then, when you're done, I'll show this video. Thank you, my friends. Thank you very much.
How many of you believe we have a governor who would go to the extremes this man has to fight for a family when the government comes running? How many of you believe that our current governor, Little, would go to the extremes this man has to protect the rights of a family in another state? Okay. Governor or not, I don't think he would have done it as a citizen, much less as the governor. This is, folks, we're at war. We're at war. A big piece of our nation, a big piece of our government is coming after the people of the United States of America and the people in the state of Idaho. They're coming for your property, they're coming for your rights, they're coming for your money. That's what they want. I know what the media has painted him to be. But those of you who know anything about me know I researched everything to the nth degree, and I can tell you everything he said here tonight, I have found to be 100% true. About what happened in Nevada, about what happened in Oregon, and it was much worse than what he let us know. He's gone to prison to protect rights. He's gone to jail to protect rights. He stood up against the government to protect rights. What are we most fearful of right now of our government? They want to take more and more of our rights. And it's not going to take somebody pussyfooting around to get it done. There was a time that might have happened, working a little bit, doing what they can in the government. That time is long gone. That time is way behind us in the past. We need a general. We need somebody who's going to stand up and fight. And I don't know anybody else that's going to do it other than this guy right here. Want to support him? VoteBundy.com. That little card that you have there. Go to the website. You can support him financially. You can support him as a voice. You can support him as a person. But I want you to take a look around this room right here. We can't sit on our hands and wait for him to get it done. He's one man. He's one person. This room, next time he comes here, needs to be bursting at the seams, and it starts with all of you sitting in your seats right now, doing something about it. You've got to go to your neighbors, you've got to go to your friends, you've got to say, listen, I know what the media's painted this guy out to be, but you need to hear him for yourself. You need to listen to him for yourself. You need to get, if we haven't learned anything else, I'm sorry KMBT back there, but if we haven't learned anything else in the last couple of years, the media's liars. They're going to feed you the story and the narrative that they want you to hear. And it's going to take all of us to turn that narrative around and explain what really happened and who this guy really is. He doesn't have anything to gain out of this. This guy can go back there and start his business back up and get going what he was doing over there in Utah, and I bet he'd be pretty happy to sit out there and have that comfort he had for a couple of years. But he sees injustice and he doesn't know how to sit down, and this is the guy that we need leading our state of Idaho. This is who we need right now. Thank you, Governor.
In early of 2015, my family and I moved to Idaho. We did not know what the Lord had in store for us, but we had hoped that it was a life of peace and tranquility in a beautiful little town with wonderful neighbors. And then 2020 came around. The governor of Idaho, Brad Little, forcing innocent people to lock down in their homes, threatening force if they go to church. I don't want that to happen. I want Idaho to remain Idaho, free, because we need Idaho to be free. We need to have at least one state in this country that is an example of safeguarding American principles and liberty. There is only one elected position that can peacefully turn the totalitarian direction of the state around. That position is governor. If the people will get behind a governor that will not compromise, a governor who will not yield, a governor who has been through the fire and knows how to win, then through that position, the house of government can be cleansed and the purpose of the state can be restored. For this reason, I am running for governor. So today, I will repent of my refusal to vote. I ask you to give it one more chance with me. And together, let's keep Idaho, Idaho. Together, with the strength of the Lord, I believe we can keep Idaho free. Thank you very much.